am proficient. I do a lot of tech, but I was like, Sammy, help.
My gosh, I'm lucky to turn my computer on some days when it comes to tech. It's just not my forte at all.
Well, what do you like to tell people on your spiel for the book? Like when you are talking about, like, I wrote this, how do you like to represent what you put out there?
Oh, geez. I've never really been asked that question before. I think, honestly, for the most part, for me, I'm really just winging it. This thing, like I'm just winging it. Um, I got to a point where, people would ask me, about the book and how did it feel and all that stuff, and I would basically say, I'm living a dream that I didn't know I had. And that's really the best way to put it, because when I set out to write the book, that doesn't even actually sound like a sentence, because I didn't set out to write it. I just was kind of in a crossroads in my own life, and I had to kind of reconnect and re-figure out who I was. And so what I did in that part of the journey is I just kind of took myself back to the last time that I could really remember myself before, being a mother and having children and all that stuff. And in my mind, I went back to when I was 14 years old in grade 9, and I really liked to write stories. And so I was like, I'm just going to start writing. So I think that's probably something I like people to know about, because it just proves that anything can happen. You're kind of on one trajectory of your life and you think this is what it's going to be and this is what you're doing. And maybe some of us have let go of some of those dreams or ideas of things that we want to do, and it really is true that it's never too late, and if it's meant to be, I think, on a universe spectrum, it'll find you eventually and you'll do it. So I think that's something that's really important for people to know, about writing the book, is how it came to me in the beginning. Yeah.
That. Yeah. I was going to ask, that was one of the questions, like, how did you get started writing? So that means, yeah, kind of coming back. I think as a parent myself, as my kids have gotten older, like it's that time to kind of reevaluate, like, wait
Hmm.
a minute, what did I let go of? Yeah, kind of refinding and reconnecting with things that you
Yeah.
let go of. So it's pretty cool. I love that. And then I was curious, as far as there's a lot of mental health in the
Hmm.
book. Yes, there's
Hmm.
a lot of kind of like navigating that. Does that come from a place of personal experience and like a family member or something? Not necessarily like a specific name or anything, but or just something like maybe a friend went through or
Yeah, I think it's really reflective to what I was going through at the time. And it started out as a passion project. Here I was, I guess I must have been, if I can do math really quick, I think I was 41 in 2020, I think. So yeah, I was 41 years old. And so back in 2017, I had been diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. And I continued on my life the next 3 years, hockey mom, working mom, doing the whole thing until it caught up to me in 2020. And in the September of 2020, I had a major relapse, and it really, really freaked me out because I lost all the feeling on my right side. And I got it back. It took a long time, but I got it back. But that was kind of like the beginning of me realizing that I couldn't live my life the way I was living before. So now I was like, okay, well, now what? What do I do? And so, writing the book started out kind of like I had different things that had inspired me. Funny enough, I'd never actually read a romance novel, other than 50 Shades of Grey, which I think everybody over the age of 30 read. Guy, girl, whatever, somewhere in between. Everybody read those books. So, but that was really the only thing that I had read. So when I started writing Two for Love One, a lot of it was a story about a girl that was reflective to some of the things that I had gone through in my life. So in being Katerina. And for an example, her story about how her father passes away when she was 15. That's a true life story that happened to me. My dad died when I was 15 of AIDS, the whole thing. So it kind of started like that. And then, it's actually kind of hard to remember because then she met Ben, and then the two of them just kind of took off, and this like thing started happening between the two of them. So there's a lot of myself in Katerina. There's also a lot of myself in Ben. So I did tap into some things, that I'd gone into, back when I was, younger and struggling, and, felt like I was going crazy and all those things. So there was a lot of myself in there. But there was also, just some different inspirations, different movies that I had seen. And really Ben was kind of, taken from, a bit of the role played by Timothy Chalamet in A Beautiful Boy. So I had seen that movie probably about 3 or 4 months before I'd started writing, and I think, when Ben kind of created himself in the book, it just became a story that Ben wanted to tell. So I mean, I talk about my characters as being real people because to me they are. Maybe it's a little nuts, but it really is true, and so I think, Katerina and Ben collectively, they wanted to tell a story together, and Ben wanted, to touch on mental health and the fact that it is real. And I wanted a modern day love story as well. And when I actually first took it to my editor and she told me it was a romance, um, I just was like, no, it's not. No, it's not a romance. I don't want to write romance. And she's like, Meg, she's like, romances are good. They're like, really huge genre. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I didn't want people to think that they were, it was going to be like the romances I knew were, White Horse and, Knight in Shining Armor type of stuff. And this definitely is not that. So I thought it was more of a drama, but, I guess it is turned out to be a romance. But yeah, that was kind of how they became who they were.
It was interesting, the family dynamics, the way he, like his family was about his mental illness. And so just kind of like how he navigated some of that, and then like how it worked between him and Katerina within like, the relationship roles, him keeping things from her, like just the whole dynamic, and a lot of that being central around the mental health and how they navigated those conversations or lack of conversations at times, and like the shame involved with having those kind of stigmas. And so I just thought it was interesting. There was just a lot of rep in there that I wasn't sure what I was getting into. I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're
Okay.
doing.
Cool. I didn't know what was going. I was like, oh, okay, we're going here now.
What we're doing. Okay.
Yeah, the scene with the family, actually, it's funny you bring that up because I would spend night after night after night with my husband, and we would sit and we would chat about the novel and different scenes. He's a real film lover. He's very cinematic. And when I write, I envision everything in my head. So I'm seeing it play out as a movie. And I think that helps, and you can see that in some of the descriptive tones of the novel. I've had people in their feedback say, they felt they were right there in New York City, etc. Because I just had to write what I saw. And the scene with the parents, the first time the first time I wrote that scene, because that's just not the type of person I'm just not mean and vindictive and cold and passive aggressive. I don't understand how that personality works at all. So the first time I wrote it, and I read it to my husband, Chris, he was like, whoa, because I just kind of came out, guns a-blazing, just really aggressive. And he was like, no, 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 no. He's like, you've got to change that and make it a little bit more, flowing. And so I was able to figure it out. But that was probably one of the hardest chapters for me to write was that family dynamic.
Yeah. It was an interesting dynamic, and it made me wonder like how that could be triggering to some people, because those family dynamics are really
Yeah.
weird to navigate. Um, but it was well done. It was just kind of like, ooh,
The
how do you
original,
come back
the,
from that?
sorry?
How does he come back from that? Like as a person, when your family's treating you like that, it
Yeah.
just made you really like feel for him in that way.
Yeah, and I think that was definitely part of it too. Like I wanted people to feel for Ben. I really wanted them, to I didn't want Ben to end up being a character that, came off as, being whiny or too needy or anything. Like I wanted him really to be real, and I wanted the personalities of Katerina and Ben to really be felt. And funny enough, in the original draft, Jonathan, which is Ben's brother, and his parents both have their own, they all have their own chapter, actually. So Jonathan had a chapter with his take, and Roland had a bit of a chapter with his take, and then we actually get to see inside Vivian. And I love Vivian's chapter, but in the end, we decided to take those chapters out, and kind of amalgamate it into the scene that you see, that is just kind of the parent scene where they go and they visit him, and they kind of basically say, what they realize what they realize they're dealing with, and how they're responsible for it. You kind of see that shift, is what we decided to go with, just to keep it nice and tight and neat and concise for the novel.
I could see that. I bet Vivian's chapter was very interesting though. As the
Yeah, and it's probably going to eventually be a spinoff. But her story, being the fact that so much of it's going to take place in the New York ballet scene, I feel that as a writer, I'm not ready yet for that level of research that I'm going to have to do. Because that's going to require a lot. Because I know there's going to be so many people that are going to be reading my books. Well, I hope people are going to be reading my books. And I definitely, I want them to be relatable, but I also want them to speak the truth. So I want to make sure that when I depict, what that life is like as a dancer, that I'm doing it properly. So I've got some work ahead of me before Vivian can really come to life, because I don't know anything about the New York dance scene, but that'll be a fun adventure.
That will be an adventure.
Mhm.
What was your favorite part of writing? Like the original
Oh,
drafting or
I actually wrote the basis of the book, you know, cover to cover in 6 weeks.
oh no.
That was an unbelievable experience. That I'm writing my second book now, and it's not happening the same way. There's things that I love about this process, as well, but I realize that I'll probably never get that feeling back again, like I did with Two for the Love of One. So I think that was probably my favorite part, is writing it in the 6 weeks. So like, because we were all on shutdown, and I was off sick still with my flare up. So I actually couldn't even write because I didn't have any feeling in my hand. So I was basically like pointing on the keyboard. But yeah, the fact that like I would go to bed and I'd wake up at 3:30 in the morning every single morning with a scene or an idea or a conversation going on in my head, and I'd jump out of bed and I'd go downstairs to my writing chair, um, and I'd sit there and I would write feverishly for, until about 8 o'clock, when the kids were up and getting to school, and then I'd get back to it again that night, usually around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And if I had time, then during the day I would kind of edit. I self-edited a lot of the book, and I fleshed out a lot of scenes, and I tweaked a lot of it after the 6 weeks. But that initial 6 weeks, that it was just, it was incredible. And just, you know, things would happen. We'd be driving down the road, or my husband would be in mid conversation. I'd be like, I gotta write something down, and that was really incredible. And I think too, like, you got to a point where now, you're adding up the words, you're adding up the pages, and you're like, that wasn't there before. That was a blank page. And now it's a story, and now it's a world, and there's personalities, and so creating that was really, really cool.
That is neat. Now you said you were writing another one. I'd seen something kind of pop up about that. Can you say a little bit about what that one's going to be about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited about this one, and it's funny because when I first got to the point where I was releasing two for the level one, it's almost like, when your child goes off to college or something, or high school or whatever, like part of you kind of dies, and you're kind of sad because you realize that, you're letting your babies go. And there was almost a little bit of guilt there, because I was like, I'm not writing about Katerina and Ben anymore. So the new characters are Dominic and Evelyn. And this story is coming from a bit of a different inspiration of me. Where I went to high school is duplicated in the story, and some things about the book and things about Evelyn is based off of my personality back then. And so Evelyn and Dominic, it's called The One I Hurt. And it's this one's still going to have that mental health rep, but it's not going to be anything like Ben. This one's going to be darker. So this one's going to feel more into the dark romance vibe. So this one, there's going to be possibly a bit of a wide shoes. You've got kind of a stocking feel in this one. We're going to venture into some different dynamics in the sexual part. So there's gonna be a little bit of like BDSM aspects in there, and so it's going to go darker, but I think it's going to be equally as enjoying to see how these characters communicate with each other, and what happens in the end.
Exciting. I'm interested in that one. For sure. Like,
Yeah, it has to be done. I was actually just writing a little bit of it before we got online, and it has to be done by the end of the month, so that I can get it to my editor, because I'd like to release it in December, kind of same time of year that I did this last one. And so I need to get it done, but I do have some betas reading it now, and they're liking it, so I am pleased.
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Very fun. Any other like thoughts for different books that are kind of percolating?
Yeah, I think, well, there's a possibility that The One I Hurt might end up being a 2-book series. And I definitely think I could flesh it out to a 3-book. So that's kind of the conversation I'm gonna be having with my editor very soon. I actually already told her that I'm gonna kind of rush through I'm about halfway through, maybe 3/4 of the way through, and my word count is higher for it if I do it all and have it just be 1 book. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably have it be 2 books at least. So that will be a project that I'll have to do. And then definitely Vivian as a side story is definitely there in the works. And then I've had a couple people want to know the continuation of the story of Ben and Katerina. We'll see. I'm not opposed to that idea. I kind of thought they were just HEA, happily ever after, and figuring stuff out, and that was it. But obviously not. You read the book; it's not fully. You know how it ends.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but I could do something like that. So I think we'll just see. I mean, both of the first 2 books ideas have really just been things that have kind of come to me. So I'm just going to let the universe do what it wants to do, and see what characters want to show up in my crazy little head, and who wants to tell a story. I don't know. Right now I'm just focused on The One I Heard. And I find that when I'm writing, I'm very dialed into that, in the respect I can't read other books, which is really a letdown, because there's a lot of books that I want to read and I can't read when I'm writing. And I'm always writing, so I'm never reading, which really kind of sucks. But yeah, it's like watching 2 TV shows at the same time. I kind of stay with the one. So right now it's all about Dominic and Evelyn and seeing what they're gonna do.
Makes sense. What is one of your favorite books that you've read?
Oh, By far, my favorite book that I have read, and I'm very limited, I will say. I just told you I don't read as often as I'd like. Definitely Pen Pal by J.T. Geisinger. After I had written two for level one, I was like, well, I guess I better start reading books in the romance genre because I had to figure out, where I fit in with the fish and who I was in comparison. So I started reading, those names like pardon me, Colleen Hoover was the first book I picked up, obviously. And then Anna Huang, Emily McIntyre. There were some other ones in there that were peppered in. I did read H.D. Carlton. I read Haunting Adeline. So I read all those books. And there was things that I liked and things that I didn't, feel as a writer I was connecting with in writing style. And then I came across J.T. Geisinger's Pen Pal. And it was page 5 and I just knew. I was like, oh my gosh, this woman can write. And my husband asked me, he's like, well, what do you mean? Like, what is it about her writing? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just the way it all flows together. It's not like she's using extravagant words or anything like that, but it's just the way she story tells is just so like, you're just zapped into that world, which is what I want to be able to do. So I would definitely say that she would be one of my mentors as well. But yeah, that book was incredible.
It was a good one. I read that
Mhm.
one.
Plot. Like I like there being a story,
Yeah,
it's not just about the smut, if you will. It's
right.
like I want my characters to have a story and have a soul, and I find that JT Geisinger really does that and puts that into her characters, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think it's like the pace of the book. It's just easy to keep, yeah. There's a handful of authors where it's like I already know I'm gonna pick it up and I'm just gonna be like, I'm in it. Like they just suck you in. And it's like the way they pace it out is just it's just beautiful.
Yeah, and with JT Geisinger too, like I never really knew what was going to happen. Like some of the other books were very tropey in a way where it was just like you knew exactly what was going to happen.
Mhm.
And once I started to do that, I mean, I will finish reading the book, but it's just, and then you're finished, and you're like, yeah, okay. I mean, that's what I thought it was going to be. And JT Geisinger, you're just like, what did you just do to me? What just happened? And that's always really exciting when you think you know something and then you're sidelined. It's always fun.
You do not. Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Is there a book in the next year or so that's coming out that you're excited about?
Um,
New release coming.
like that from another author.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You know what? I don't follow authors enough to know. There is a lot of books that are coming out in my indie author circuit that I've been so graciously able to connect with on Instagram. And so a lot of my my fellow indie authors are bringing out new releases all the time, and I really, really want to support them. So my TBR is definitely growing.
Mhm.
But I want to try some of these indie authors that have some new releases coming out. And I mean, like anything JT Geisinger, I'll pick up 100 times. So yeah.
Like, yeah, I have a stack of indie and then I have my stack of traditional, and I'm like, okay, which one's next?
Mm.
So
It's hard
like,
to know what the difference is too, right? Because you have to ask yourself like, what is it that makes, a trad author? Is it luck? I mean, I know a lot of my process with writing was luck. I mean, I ran into my editor because she owned a bookstore and I was getting a tattoo across the street, and I came out of the tattoo place and I saw this bookstore. I was like, oh, cool. And I went into the bookstore and, the rest is history. How do these, because everyone starts out as an indie author, right? You're not born an author. Well, I guess technically maybe you are born an author, but you know what I mean? Like um, you have to meet the right people to get that traditionally published title. So, you have to wonder what is the difference between an indie author's work and a traditional publisher, other than the fact that they have a lot of money going into editing and stuff
right.
and marketing. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting because I do have quite a few like local Oklahoma indie authors that I try to support in store, and it's like watching them try to like get that book out there. And so been picking up some others from like other states, and obviously you in Canada, trying to like really diversify, like not just having traditionally published books, because I feel like It's like everybody has a voice and everybody's story is going to be a little unique. And just kind of seeing those perspectives is it's just a lot of fun. And so it's like, you read some indies and you're like, why isn't this traditionally, like you should have
Absolutely.
already
Yeah,
been
sure.
snatched up.
You never know. And I mean, like, I remember, when I first put the book out there and I realized how much was involved in marketing, I literally, like, I went into a very, very dark place. Like, I was just so overwhelmed. I had no idea. I still don't know what I'm doing, but maybe I know a little bit more now, but it's daunting. It's really, really hard. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, can someone just send me a literary agent to knock on my door? It took me so much to believe in my work that now that I do, and I finally found that point where I'm like, I think I got something really, really good. I'm tired. I want somebody else to do the rest of the work. But to be honest, I've met so many people in the indie authorship world. Like, I've met artists, I've met, I've got a PA now who helps me with my posts and stuff like that. And to be honest, being an indie author is really, really gratifying because you do everything yourself. And and then you also make all the decisions, so you don't have somebody flying in going, what, I don't like the title Two for Love of One, I want to name it, Ben and Cat. And you're like, no, I don't want that. So that's the nice thing about indie authorship, is that literally you are the decision maker.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be because it's like it's your child, right? It's
Oh,
my book baby, right? And I have an idea in my head, and this is what I want. And so I could see some of that, trying to like let go of some of those aspects by handing it
yeah,
over
yeah.
with agents and stuff. So that would be pretty difficult and kind of stressful. Like,
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I'm still not going to say that if there's any traditional publishers listening, please, just here's
reach
my
out.
I'm sure we can chat. We'll figure it out. Yeah, that would be awesome to be able to just write for a living and just, have it be a sustainable income would be amazing. I love doing what I do. So very, very, very happy, very honored and grateful for it.
I love that. No, this was fun. I really enjoyed the book, and I have a few people in my store that picked it up and definitely really enjoyed the book. And we're sad that just life happened today. It just was one of
Yeah.
those days, and so I was like, "That's okay. We're gonna just make this work."
Yeah.
But I'm sure they're gonna be watching as soon as I get it posted because
Amazing.
they wanted to be here. But I appreciate you taking the time and coming on, and look forward to the next book. That one sounds interesting, and watching as your career takes off. And yeah, I hope a publisher reaches out because
Well, thank you so much. And thank the other readers that picked up my book and gave me a chance. I really appreciate that. I'm always checking for my, reviews on Goodreads and Amazon. Obviously, that helps, build credibility and stuff like that. But I just appreciate people, taking a look at the book, and I mean, the fact that you love it is a bonus. Obviously it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. But for those of you readers that do love it, that's a bonus that I'm just so grateful for and thankful for. So thank them for me when you see them. That I really appreciate them, giving me a chance and reading my work. It means a lot.
absolutely. Well, if everybody wants to follow you, you want to tell us where we can find you.
Sure, yeah. So you can follow me at Meg Lush Writes. So that's my name, and Writes on Instagram. That's probably where I'm the most active. Um, I do have a Facebook page, so you can definitely find me there. If you're just a Facebook user, that's fine. And I am in the process of starting a newsletter. Actually, JT Geisinger told me to do that. So just on Instagram, it was a back and forth thing that she actually commented on one of my comments, and she's like, "Start your newsletter." I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay." So yeah, I will be starting that when I can wrap my head around it. So I mean, if they want to be a part of that, the links on my link tree all there. They can sign up for it, or they can just message me and let me know. But that would probably be the best way.
Well, well, it was wonderful chatting with you,
You
and I
too.
look forward to keeping an eye out on what's coming next. So
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for taking my books in. I really appreciate that too.
thanks, Mike. Have a
Okay.
great day.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Bye.
Bye.